In this video, we dive into one of the most brilliant attacking masterpieces ever played between two chess engines, Stockfish versus AlphaZero. In a clash of titans, Stockfish executes a flawless kingside assault, featuring a breathtaking knight sacrifice on h7 and a devastating rook sacrifice on g6. This isn't just tactics, it's a full demonstration of Grandmaster-level planning, precision, and technical endgame conversion. From a rare English defense to a rook-lift attack and deep positional play, this game is a goldmine of instructive ideas. Whether you're rated 1000 or 2500, this is the kind of game that sharpens your intuition, deepens your strategy, and reminds you why chess is the greatest game ever invented.
d4.
White starts with the queen's pawn opening, a classic foundation for long-term central control.
b6.
A provocative reply by AlphaZero. This is the English defense, a hyper-modern system.
e4.
White grabs the center without hesitation. This is textbook punishment against the English defense. Claim space, restrict counterplay, and prepare to develop all pieces harmoniously.
Bishop b7.
Black fianchettos the bishop, placing it on the long diagonal to apply latent pressure on a4.
Bishop d3.
A subtle but deep move. White develops the bishop where it eyes h7, already suggesting ideas of a kingside attack.
Knight f6.
Black develops naturally, attacking a4 and preparing to castle. Standard development. But note, the knight will need help to truly challenge White's central control.
Queen e2.
A multi-purpose move. It defends a4, opens the d1 square for a rook, and may support a future long castle.
Knight c6.
Black develops the queen's knight, but it's a bit awkward here. It blocks the c-pawn and offers little immediate counterplay.
c3.
White fortifies the center and prepares for long-term stability. This also blunts any future knight b4 jump and prepares for a later d4, d5, or b4 thrust.
e5.
Black challenges the center. This move seeks tension, but it's coming from a position of less control.
Knight f3.
Development continues with perfect harmony. The knight supports e4, eyes d4 and g5, and helps prepare castling.
d6.
Black reinforces e5 and hints at locking the center. But by building slowly, AlphaZero concedes space and allows White to lead the development race, a risk in modern engine play.
Short castling.
King safety is achieved early. White is castled, developed, and ready to transition into the middle game with ideas on both wings.
Knight d7.
Black reroutes the knight. The plan is to reorient it to f6 or back up b6 to c5 operations.
Knight a3.
This seemingly odd move has depth. Stockfish prepares a deep strategic knight maneuver to optimize piece pressure.
Bishop e7.
Black develops another piece but does so passively. There's no attempt to challenge the center or provoke White.
d5.
White closes the center on his terms. This restricts the fianchetto bishop and seizes more space.
Knight cb8.
A radical retreat. Black admits that the knight is poorly placed and attempts to reset it via d7.
Rook d1.
A positional gem. The rook supports the backward d-pawn, eyes the open d-file for the future, and increases central control.
Short castling.
Black castles at last, but despite achieving king safety, the position is already slightly passive.
Bishop c2.
A quiet retreat, but don't be fooled. The bishop now eyes h7, enabling future sacrifices.
Knight f6.
Repetition of the knight move, but it's not contributing much. It defends h7, yes, but Stockfish will soon make that defense look utterly insufficient.
Knight c4.
White's knight finds its dream square. It pressures e5, eyes d6, and controls b6.
Queen c8.
Black awkwardly maneuvers the queen, likely to connect rooks or prepare bishop a6. But the queen is moving away from the king side at a time it will soon desperately need defenders.
a4.
The space grab continues. This pawn restricts b5 and prepares to expand on the queen side if needed.
Knight bd7.
Finally, the queen's knight returns to play. But again, it's passive, and Stockfish is already preparing to detonate the king side.
Knight e3.
White reroutes the knight toward f5. A dark square invasion is brewing. From f5, Stockfish will threaten sacrificial ideas and launch a storm that AlphaZero cannot contain.
a5.
Black fights for space on the queen side, but it's reactionary. White's pieces are already poised for a kingside assault. AlphaZero is a move too slow.
Knight f5.
This is where the thunder rolls. The knight lands on f5, pressuring h6 and d6. A key attacker enters the battle.
Bishop d8.
A defensive move. The bishop steps back to protect h4 to f6, but now black's pieces are retreating while white is gathering storm clouds.
Knight g5.
The alarm bells are ringing. White threatens immediate sacrifices on h7 and f7. Tactically and positionally, black is already in danger.
g6.
Forced, black must cover h7, but this creates dark square weaknesses and opens diagonal routes for the queen.
Knight h6 check.
Boom! A direct knight sacrifice is threatened. The knight lunges with a tempo. If taken, there's a forced mate. If not, the initiative snowballs.
King g7.
King steps into the fire voluntarily. But what else? Capturing the knight would be suicidal due to knight e6 check.
Queen f3.
A brilliant, quiet move. The queen eyes f7, h5, and joins the attack with flexibility.
Knight h5.
Black tries to hold with defensive reinforcement, but this is the calm before the sacrifice storm. The knight on h5 is unstable, and h7 is still a glaring weakness.
Queen h3.
Elegant and deadly. Stockfish calmly shifts the queen to h3, reinforcing the h7 sacrifice idea.
Knight c5.
AlphaZero tries to distract, repositioning the knight towards c5 to apply counterpressure on e4 or support the queenside.
Knight f5 check.
Back again. And it's not a repetition, it's surgical timing. This check forces black's king even deeper into the corner.
King h8.
The king is locked into h8, the final square of its own coffin. With no defenders nearby and white's heavy artillery lurking, AlphaZero is functionally playing down a piece.
g4.
Textbook. This is how you launch a kingside pawn storm with the center closed. Black's knight on h5 is in serious trouble, and every white piece is participating in the assault.
Queen d7.
AlphaZero finally signals it understands the threat. The queen returns to help, but it's not a solution. It's too slow, too reactive.
Knight takes h7.
Brilliancy alert. This is the kind of move that earns triple exclamation marks. The knight sacrifice completely shatters the h-file and rips apart black's kingside structure.
King takes h7.
AlphaZero accepts the sacrifice, but with it comes doom. The h-file is now open and black's king is left without shelter.
King h1.
Pure technique. Stockfish plays this slow, quiet king move to step off the g1, a 7 diagonal, and prepare the rook-lift via rook g1. No rush.
Rook h8.
AlphaZero counters with a defensive rook-lift, trying to hold the h-file. But it's all reactive now, and white has multiple ways to overrun the position.
Rook g1.
Here comes the heavy artillery. The rook joins via the g-file, targeting g7. Notice how Stockfish hasn't rushed. It has built every piece into the attack. This is coordination, patience, and power.
Bishop f6.
AlphaZero finally develops the dark square bishop, but again, it's too little, too late. The bishop joins a fire already out of control.
b4.
A perfect switch of fronts. Stockfish doesn't forget about the queenside. This move supports a5 and clamps down on counterplay.
Knight a6.
AlphaZero is hoping for distractions, but Stockfish has already calculated to the end. The queenside isn't about queenside play, it's about cutting escape routes.
Bishop d2.
The bishop finally enters with force. The timing is precise. Only after the structure is secure does this piece activate.
A takes b4.
AlphaZero captures on b4, opening lines in a desperate attempt for counterplay. But it only accelerates white's rook infiltration.
C takes b4.
Stockfish calmly recaptures and maintains the bind. The queenside is locked up in white's favor.
King g8.
A mysterious king move. AlphaZero brings the king to g8, perhaps to run away through f8, but there's no safe haven left.
g5.
Here we go again. Stockfish advances the g-pawn, threatening g6 and opening the g-file permanently. The final assault begins now.
King f8.
The king keeps running, now to f8, but there's no escaping the net. The only thing this achieves is pulling the king into the center, right where the rooks want it.
G takes f6.
The pawn falls, and with it, black's last kingside defender. f6 was critical. Now that it's gone, white owns both open files.
c6.
Desperation. AlphaZero looks for queenside counterplay with c6 and perhaps c5 later. But Stockfish knows the attack is decisive. It will never give black time to activate.
b5.
Immediate clampdown. Stockfish stops c5 in its tracks. This is surgical. When you have a winning attack, don't allow distractions. Seal the board and focus fire.
c takes b5.
Black captures. But now the queenside files are opening, which could allow a 5, a 6 at the right moment. Another file falls under white's control.
Rook g5.
The rook lifts with venom. It's headed to g3 or g7. There's no hiding place for the black king now. Every file, every diagonal is under surveillance.
Knight c5.
The knight returns, but too late. It may cover a few squares, but it can't stop the flood. Black is outnumbered and out-coordinated on every square.
Rook a g1.
This is the finishing touch of preparation. With both rooks now doubled on the g-file, white has full control of the assault vector.
King e8.
AlphaZero continues shifting the king, but there's nowhere safe. Every move is purely reactive.
a5.
A brilliant touch. Stockfish doesn't just tunnel down one path. While preparing to launch on the king side, it throws in a queenside punch.
Rook h7.
An inaccuracy that seals the coffin. Black should have played rook take a 5, at least removing white's queenside pressure.
Rook takes g6.
Boom! The moment we've all been waiting for. White sacrifices a rook with surgical timing.
F takes g6.
The recapture is forced. AlphaZero has no choice but to accept the exchange. But now the F file is open and the king's protection is gone.
Rook takes g6.
Stockfish recaptures and instantly invades the 6th rank. This rook is a monster, cutting off escape squares, threatening queen g4 or queen f3.
Knight takes f6.
Black eliminates one attacker, but it doesn't solve the bigger problem. The g-file is open, the king is exposed, and white's queen is ready to enter with deadly precision.
Queen f3.
This is the kind of move that wins games. Not flashy, but deeply powerful. The threat of infiltration is so strong that black has no constructive moves.
King f7.
The king tries to run again. It's laughably too late. Stockfish is in full control, and now it begins the mop-up.
Queen g2.
The queen eyes g7, prepares coordination with rook g7 check, and locks down the g-file. It's total domination. The queen and rook are now in position to deliver final tactical blows.
Rook a h8.
AlphaZero finally doubles rooks on the h-file, but it's a defensive gesture with no bite. Black has no threats.
Rook g7 check.
Stockfish forces the king out into the open. These checks aren't for harassment. They lead to material gain or mate. The g7 rook is untouchable, and any rook exchange will collapse black's entire position.
King f8.
The king retreats, but now it's completely tied down. The queen is about to penetrate, and the h7 rook is hanging.
Rook takes d7.
Cold and clinical. White grabs the 2nd rank and eliminates a black queen. The rook isn't just winning material, it's clearing the way for the queen and locking black's king in a cage. The position is completely lost for AlphaZero now.
Rook takes h2 check.
Desperation. Black throws in a check, hoping to muddy the waters. But Stockfish has calculated everything. Nothing will distract it from the kill.
Queen takes h2.
White recaptures the rook with zero fear. Even though black tries to complicate with doubling on the h-file, Stockfish calmly accepts the imbalance and prepares to dominate.
Rook takes h2 check.
Black follows through with the double capture, but this is nothing more than a minor nuisance. AlphaZero is delaying the inevitable.
King takes h2.
The king recaptures confidently. Now white has a better king, a passed pawn, and dominant control of the board.
Knight c takes d7.
Black retrieves the rook, finally regaining material balance. But now both sides enter an endgame with zero counterplay for black.
Bishop a6.
A logical try from black. The bishop wants to help hold the a-file or to escape from the knight.
A takes b6.
Boom! The passed pawn is activated. The threat of queening forces black to respond immediately.
Knight takes b6.
Black takes the pawn, but now both knights stare at each other in the center, and White's king is ready to join the battle.
King g3.
White's king calmly activates. This isn't a flashy move, it's endgame mastery. Bring the king to the center.
King e7.
Black mirrors with the king, hoping to block White's central king march. But the difference is stark. White's king is safe and mobile, while Black's still defends weaknesses.
Bishop b4.
A beautiful strategic retreat. This isn't an aggressive bishop. It's a controlling bishop. That distinction wins games.
Knight bd7.
Black huddles into passive defense. AlphaZero now commits both knights to protection duties. The problem? No activity, no threats, no initiative, just waiting for Stockfish to squeeze.
King h4.
Stockfish uses a waiting maneuver, slowly improving the king's position while giving Black nothing.
King d8.
AlphaZero mimics the same dance, but again, White has more useful plans, while Black merely mirrors.
King g5.
White's king takes another key step, now threatening to penetrate on f5. Notice how every Stockfish move is dual purpose, increasing pressure, controlling squares, and keeping flexibility.
King c7.
Black's king moves to the queenside, hoping to aid in defense or support a future knight maneuver. But again, no real counterplay.
f3.
A master touch. Stockfish secures the e4 square and restricts Black's knight. This is prophylaxis, prevent counterplay before it begins.
King b6.
AlphaZero returns to babysit the queenside, but it's hopeless. White will soon break through on the light squares or mobilize the queen's bishop.
King f5.
Stockfish continues its king walk, now centralized and ready to dominate a6. With every tempo, the grip tightens.
King c7.
Just more back and forth from Black. AlphaZero's position is a box, and the box is shrinking. There's no concept here, only reaction.
King e6.
The king is now on a6, an endgame dream square. This is how a grandmaster handles a winning endgame. No tricks, just domination.
King b6.
Black tries the same dance, but it's futile. The king can't stop all threats, and White is now ready to launch the final breakthrough.
Bishop d3.
Perfect conclusion. White reinforces the center and locks down all escape squares. The final position is one of total domination. Black has no move that doesn't worsen the position. AlphaZero resigns.